How we going, folks? Welcome back to the Nightmare Cabin, and tonight we are doing part 2 of our Exodus Retrospective. So, yeah, where did we leave off? Well, I think we finished, didn't we, with the live album. So the band's kind of fizzled out and then reformed with Paul Bailoff, and they did the live album, Another Lesson in Violence. And they kind of plodded along for a couple of years, a tour here and a tour there. That album came out on Century Media. And they kind of just plodded along, doing the odd tour. I've just finished listening to the Gary Holt autobiography as well. I thought if I buy the book, it's just going to sit on a pile and it's just going to sit there for years. So it was on Audible. So I just got that and listened to it for the last week. Excuse me, it's really hot in here. So, they basically Gary Holt got hooked on drugs and got clean, and it was a bit of a refreshing one normally because most people like hit rock bottom and go to rehab and all that. He was just like, no, I'm done. That's it. And he started writing again as soon as he gave up drugs. His inspiration came back. Now, my memory gets a little bit ropey here. The band reformed again to do the Chuck Billy benefit concert. A lot of bands reformed. Forbidden, Death Angel, I think Legacy. So Steve did a gig with Testament as Legacy. I think they did that night with Paul Bailoff. And I think that kind of kicked things off again. But unfortunately, Paul Bailoff had a stroke. And, unfortunately, they had to switch the life support machine off. And, he's no longer with us. But I think this album was in the process of being made at the time. So that's when I asked Steve if he wanted to jump on board. Well, no, that's not. They did have some dates already booked while Paul was alive, and they didn't want to cancel, and that's when they said to Steve, do you want to help us out? And then it kind of snowballed from there. So with time, they brought together Tempo of the Damned, which came out in 2004, and this is pretty much the Pleasures of the Flesh. There you go, correct. Pleasures of the Flesh and Toxic Waltz lineup, but with a new bass player, Jack Gibson. So during Exodus's time off, Gary Holt formed a band called, what was that called? War something. Let's quickly look it up. War. War Dance. And a couple of songs from War Dance did actually make it onto this album. And we've got Jack Gibson, so he's the new bass player. And then apart from that, you've got Gary Holt back on guitar, Steve Souza on vocals, Rick Holnett on guitar, and for this album as well, Tom Hunting returns on drums, although he was on the live album as well that they did with Paul Bailoff. So yeah, basically Jack Gibson was on that live album as well, wasn't he? And I'm just getting my details together here because I'm on the fly. But yeah, so let's get into it. Tempo of the Damned, I mean, a classic in many people's eyes, a return to form. Some people say this is their best album ever. Some say it's the best thing they've done. They haven't done anything as good as since. I'm not too sure about that. To me, this is Exodus's Brave New World. This is them breaking into sort of the new world. This is the new era of Exodus. It's, a classic thrash metal band that has fully embraced the modern climate of music. And as Gary Holt says in his book, it was kind of like, it's kind of, as I've said before, metal, especially the media, it does like to rewrite history. And he's saying like, it was apparently this is what started the thrash revival. And he's like, well, it didn't feel like that at the time. It just felt like another album. And they were touring for next to nothing. So it seems like it took a few years for this album to really get legs. But it was critically acclaimed at the time. Even though the sales were slow but sure, shall we say. But there's some fantastic songs on this. And yeah, it's got modern, shredding, punishing riffs with a modern heavy production, like a modern death metal, like that modern crunch, you know, that the 80s albums wouldn't have had. This isn't an album that's trying to recreate the 80s. This is a band that cut their teeth in the 80s and is still shredding with full force in today being 2004. Excuse me. So it's about just under an hour long. It's 54 minutes, 10 tracks. It's produced by Andy Sneap. You've got one song, second from last track is The Impaler, which is from the Kirk Hammett days, and it has Paul Bailoff lyrics. And yeah, I mean, kicking off with a 1-2 punch, Scar Spangled Banner and War Is My Shepherd, both thrashy as hell. Then you got the classic Blacklist. I was saying the other day, Paul Di'Anno should have sung that song. I mean, that would have been fit perfectly on one of the Killers albums. It's just such a fun song about like a bounty hunt or whatever it is. Vigilante maybe. You know, you should have fought twice because you're paying with your life. You must have some kind of death wish. I've added your name to my blacklist. Brilliant. Then you got Shroud of Urine. So Blacklist, it's sort of Scar Spangled Banner and War Is My Shepherd start off quite thrashy. Then Blacklist is sort of like a mid-paced, and Shroud of Urine has got more sort of groove, like nice chunky riffs to it. Then you got Forward March. I like the dark guitars on that, especially the lead. It kind of cuts to like a, you know, like a clean sort of playing, which leads into the chorus, but it's really dark sounding. It's really cool. Culling the Herd is awesome with a classic solo on that one. And then Sealed with a Fist and Throwing Down, again, massive groove on that one. And you cannot not bob your head to Sealed with a Fist. And yeah, Sealed with a Fist and Throwing Down were War Dance. Was it War Dance? I've got the bloody name already. The bands that that Gary formed out of Exodus. It was War Dance, yeah, with Jax Gibson. So yeah, awesome album, and return to form, or I think it's the start of a new form, to be honest, because I do think the reason I did this as two parts, there is a clear distinction between old Exodus and new Exodus, and I do think this is the start of a winning streak and a start of a new era, of a new sound for the band. It is really hot in here. So next up, things go pear-shaped, basically. 3 members leave. So Rick, I think, was still struggling with drugs. He's an original. He's been on every album so far, but he had to step away from the band. So we lose a guitarist. Tom Hunting has back trouble. Original drummer, but he only played on the first 3 albums, but he did the last live album, obviously the last album. He had to step away. And then for the tour for Tempo of the Damned, Steve basically couldn't get the time off work. He had a job that he couldn't just leave, and certainly couldn't leave at the time. He was having pressures at home because he had a young family, and basically couldn't do it, and it caused a famous falling out between Steve and Gary. So they did most of their tour with Skin Lab's vocalist and someone else who I can't remember, and another guy who was their guitar tech at the time, Mr. Rob Dukes. And yeah, I don't know how he got the gig, but yeah, apparently he was a guitar tech, and it got to Gary somehow that he could spit as it is in the mic, and he gave the guy a shot, and now we start the Rob Dukes era. But so on Shovel-Headed Kill Machine in 2005, we get new singer, new guitarist, new drummer. So the new guitarist is Lee Altus, is it? I've got to pronounce this guy's name correctly, otherwise it's going to... I did this as the Heathen retrospective as well, didn't I? So yeah, you got Gary Holt still on guitar, Jack Gibson still on bass, then Lee Altus on guitar, Rob Dukes on vocals, and on drums this time we have Mr. Paul Bostoff. You know him, Forbidden, Slayer. Did do an album with Testament. Who else has he been in? He's been loads of stuff. He's been in and out of Slayer a bunch of times. So yeah, and then 2005, Shovel-Headed Kill Machine. Now this is my first Exodus album. This is the one I jumped on board with. I think I've bought Bonded by Blood, but I'd got wind of Exodus, and this was the first new album. You know, so this was my Exodus album, so to speak, and I've loved it ever since it came out. You can see there. The spine has faded. The sun has bleached it with time. But Rob has got these scathing vocals, and I do think Rob is the best vocalist for Exodus in this period of Exodus. I'll get into Steve versus Rob later on, but he fits this album like a glove. He suits the band down to the ground, and he suits the material perfectly as well. And I think a new lineup for this new era of Exodus is probably what the band needed. Actually, I think some fresh blood. Well, it worked basically. So, you know, I will say this is a really good album. I do really enjoy it all the time it's on, but it does lack standout tracks like Blacklist, or like songs to come in the next albums. So it's 10 punishing tracks. I mean, how long does this album go on for? 52 minutes. And I think basically Gary is he's got a new lineup, and I think when a thrash metal band gets a new lineup, they go, yeah, let's just be as heavy as possible. Basically, I think that's just what they did. But there's great songs on here, you know. Death Amphetamine, Karma's Messenger, I Am Abomination is great. It's all good stuff. 44 Magnum Opus, really good stuff. But a song like Blacklist, I think, would have helped them at this time. But yeah, as far as considering the band had 3 new members and in particular a new singer, this was a real good achievement. Next up then we've got the Atrocity Exhibition Exhibit A. When did this come out? This was in 2007. Now Rob in particular has settled into his role at this point. This time he would have been doing loads of touring with the band, and you see him sort of branch out more as a vocalist. He does a bit of clean vocals when needed, and the band take a much more darker direction in terms of tone, and you know, they're still playing thrash metal, but I think where they're on Nuclear Blast, I think the sort of European sound is influencing them. Think The Haunted, think, you know, like the sort of Swedish, melodic Swedish. Not quite death metal, but on its way to being there. You know, the band could have easily have toured with death metal bands and, you know, held their own perfectly well. This isn't Pizza Thrash, which the sort of revival of thrash brought with us, that were heavily influenced by Exodus. You know, the Big Night Trainers, the Suicidal Cap, you know, your municipal wastes, that sort of thing, you know. Exodus has branched away from that at that point, and were treading new ground. And I think the artwork shows that as well, you know. But yeah, I mean, Call to Arms is one of the best intro tracks ever. That and then just get fucking awesome, and kicks into riot act. I mean, this is pretty much a perfect album, really. Funeral Hymn, Children of a Worthless God, fucking awesome song. And yeah, you know, heavy metal has always taken a dig at religion, but it's always famously been more anti-Christianity. This is a song that starts pointing the finger at Islam, and apart from Exodus and I think Nile, I don't know of any other metal band doing that. Everyone's oh so brave when it comes to Christianity, but yeah, they have a go at someone else for a change, which is refreshing. As it was, Soon It Shall Be, another great track. Iconoclasm. I mean, the only thing wrong with the pretty much this era of the band is that I think that some of the songs, the albums can be over-egged puddings, and it can be, some songs can be a little too long. And Gary, you know, he even says in his book, you know, oh, you know, if I want to write a long song, I will. But it's like, yeah, but, you know, a long song needs to go through different phases or maybe different sections and kind of go on a journey. Like, this is literally 9 minutes long of just, you know, it can be a little tiring after a while. But none of it's bad. I mean, we've got, you know, this is Exhibition A and the next album's Exhibition B. You know, maybe if it was split up to a C and it was all the songs about, all the albums like 40 minutes each, that could have worked. But I try not to get too thingy on how much material you get in an album. You know, if it's good, it's good. And this is a really good album. It's about an hour long. If you look on Metal Archives, it says it's an hour and 11 minutes. It's not. It's one of those last tracks that has like 10 minutes of silence, and then you have like a bluegrass version of Bonded by Blood, which is quite fun. Oh yeah, you get 2 artworks on this one, so yeah, I think I prefer that one. But we've got any cool? There was one. It might be the next album actually, where all their heads are cut off. But I think that is the next album actually. But yeah, a great album, and like I say, this is this lineup settling in basically, and it's again, it shows a new direction for the band. Next up, you get Shovel-Headed Tour Machine, which is a tour documentary, which was actually made by Rob Dukes, and you also get a Live at Wacken. So you get 2 DVDs. No, what do you get? You get a DVD and 2 DVDs and a disc. There you go. So yeah, you get the concert on DVD and the CD, and then the documentary on the 3rd DVD. Again, really, really good. Really worth your money. Basically just the story of the band. Kind of documenting the second run of the band, actually. It was around this time as well that Exodus put out a DVD. Is it Live at Wacken as well? No, is it Live at Dynamo? Bear with me. Yes, Double Live Dynamo. And that's 2 shows with Paul Bailoff. One from back in the day and one from the reunion. And both shows are really good. Also, I forgot to mention, there was another DVD that came out of the album launch show for Tempo of the Damned. Now, you can get it as a CD, but you could also get it as a DVD with the full show, where they do a ultra long set, and they actually end up playing the entire album. Not in order. It's all kind of speckled through the set list, but every song on that album is played. and it is like a 20 song set. In fact, I've got it right here. Yeah, it's two DVDs, 2 hours 10 minutes, and yeah, 22 songs in total. Absolutely. You can find it on YouTube. I've always wanted to buy it on DVD, but whenever I've found one for sale, it's always been ridiculously expensive. And the Dynamo one with Paul Bailoff as well. I thought I had it, but I can't find it. But that's always the way when I do these things. But Shovel-Headed Tour Machine, really, really good. Well worth getting. Now, next up, you got a controversial album, Let There Be Blood. Now, this is the current lineup, re-recording the band's debut album, Bonded by Blood, produced by Gary Holt, mixed by Andy Sneap. The last album was produced by... Basically, going forward, if Andy Sneap doesn't produce it, he mixes it. It's either produced by Andy Sneap or produced by Gary and mixed by Andy Sneap. That's pretty much it. All albums going forward. Right. I don't know why people get so fucking het up about when bands re-record old stuff. I'm doing a rant now. It's a stopgap release. What do you get when you get stopgap release? You get a live album, you either get a B-sides compilation, you either get a best-of compilation with a couple of shitty new tracks, you get a covers album, or you get an album when they re-record an old album. What is the big deal? It hasn't superseded the original release. It hasn't replaced it. The original release is still there. It's a companion piece. They're revisiting old material with the current lineup, with 20 plus years experience, with new technology. Why do people get themselves in such a... why do they get their fanny in such a twist when a band re-records? I don't get it. Nothing brings out the anger more than when a band re-records old stuff. I don't see what the problem is. I really don't. This is a really good album. I'm not going to stick up for it too much because even Gary slags it off, and so does Rob Dukes. So they buckled to the pressure in my eyes. And I remember at the time in Terrorizer magazine, you had a band called Bonded by Blood where they sit down interviewing Gary, and Gary had to pretty much explain himself to him. It was ridiculous. I've been going, fuck off. Get an original name, you pricks. I ain't got an answer to you. But yeah, I think this is a really good re-recording. Sorry. And I think it was alright when Anthrax did it. I thought it was alright when Testament did it with First Strike Still Deadly. I thought it was alright when Annihilator did it with the bonus CD that they did with Feast. I don't get what the problem is. I really don't understand it. So, yeah, I like this album. No, it's not better than the original. It's not trying to be. It's a good companion piece. It's a good revisitation of the original tracks. That's it. That's it. Move on. Anyway, I like that. So, anyway, around this time, Steve Zetro Souza did a new band called Tennant. I couldn't not mention this because this album's phenomenal. So you got Jed Simon, Byron Stroud, and Gene Hoglan from Strapping Young Lad, and Glenn Avalius. What was he in? I know he's done something good as well, so I need to look this up. So but it's basically Strapping Young Lad with Steve on vocals, and it's him basically doing the closest you're going to get to a death metal album. And let's have a look. I need to find out who this other guy is on guitar. So yeah, like I say, you got Jed Simon, Byron Stroud, and Gene Hoglan from Strapping Young Lad. Gene Hoglan as well, you know, from Testament, Death, Fear Factory, Dark Angel, so on and so forth. Yes, I knew him from something. So Glenn Avalius, I think that is. He was in Forbidden. He was on, Forbidden Evil. And he was on Testament, Return of the Apocalyptic City. Something was telling me he was in Nevermore. Or was that the guitarist? So if this guy played on Forbidden Evil, so that was the first Forbidden album, I think it was the guitarist on the next album, Twisted into Form. He went on to do Nevermore, didn't he? But anyway, So you got Forbidden guitarists, Strapping Young Lead members, and Steve Souza. Definitely check this album out if you haven't seen it. Sovereign is called, and yeah, awesome stuff. Think the extremity, the madness of Strapping Young Lad. Technical thrash with a, I don't think this is very industrial actually, but you get that point, you got that kind of sound, but really, really good. And what we're going to get in the contrast between Rob Duke's vocals and Steve's vocals is that like, Rob's the more extreme of the two. Well, beg to differ, because Steve can do extreme. He's more than capable of it. Right, so next up we have Exhibit B. So we've got part 2 of the Atrocity exhibition, and you do get a bit of a gap really, because with the last album obviously you've got the live documentary, the re-recording of Bonded by Blood, but bypass that for the moment and we'll just concentrate on these 2 albums. So at the end of Exhibition A, the last track, Bedlam 1 2 3, ends with like an intro, and that intro is the intro to the opening track of this, the Ballad of Leonard and Charles. So if you notice, you have a little kind of acoustic intro and then the song kicks in, but you'll notice the opening chords are the closing chords of Bedlam on this. And then at the end of the last track of this, Good Riddance, it ends with like an acoustic, and that is Call to Arms, the intro track, when it goes bam 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 and it gets all heavy and it's all good. That riff that they're playing then is that riff repeated acoustically at the end of this, so it all kind of bookends together. Exhibition B, again, I always said like, the only problem with this album is that it's too bloody long, but listening to it the other day, it wasn't really a problem, to be honest, especially when you take off the bonus track. It yeah, that's what I was talking about. Yeah, it's a really good album, and I don't think it was over long at all actually, even though there are some long songs on here. Yes, once you take the bonus track off, you get like it's about an hour again, and yes, it's not that big a problem. We got the Ballad of Lennon and Charles. Basically, once the 2 introductions are out of the way, it's pretty much just a 5-minute song. Beyond the Pale is great. Class Dismissed is a fantastic song. Downfall, March of the Sycophants. Like, it takes a couple of songs to it's kind of like 2 big intro songs, but then once the album sort of settles in, it's just banger after banger. Burn Hollywood Burn, phenomenal track. Democide is real dark, I believe, kind of doomy, or is that Nanking? Can't remember now. The Sun Is My Destroyer, though, is one of Exodus's best songs. Absolutely phenomenal. It's the 9-minute epic, and it doesn't outstay its welcome, funny enough. But yeah, this is pretty much, it's just a phenomenal album, and again, it feels like Rob is really, really settling into, being. Oh yeah, it's an album. It is an hour and 14 minutes. Bloody hell. Yeah, it's a monster of an album. It's a big, thick book, but it's worth working your way through. And it's a different artwork on the inside. I remember. No, it is. Yeah. But yeah, it's the band on top form basically. Oh, at this point, sorry, I forgot to mention, Tom Harding is back in the band. Paul Bostoff took over on drums for Shovel-Headed Kill Machine, but it was just the one album. So Tom Hunting's back in the band, and he's stayed in the band at this point. At this point forward, the only change is the vocalist. So around this time, tensions start in the band. Chuck Billy from Testament starts managing the band. And at this point as well, Gary starts touring with Slayer. And who knows what happens. I don't suppose it really matters anymore. But Rob Dukes ends up being kicked out of the band. And Steve comes back again. Apparently, he wasn't getting on with the new material. At this point, Gary would always record or be there in the booth, working the vocals and recording the vocals with Rob, but Rob wasn't getting along with the vocals. Didn't like the new material. He was touring with Slayer at the time, and for whatever reason, it weren't working out with Rob, and Steve came back in. It sounds like it was a bit of a rescue job, really, but they did Blood In, Blood Out. Did Andy Sneap? I'm pretty much. So this is 2014. Atrocity Exhibition was 2010. So there's a 4-year gap between the albums. Yes, Andy Sneap did the mix, mastering, and engineering. Who did the poo? Jack Gibson did the engineering. Yeah. So, like I say, Steve Souza's back in the band. On the track Body Harvest, you get Chuck Billy doing vocals. I think he does backing vocals on BDK as well. Another great album, really. I mean, he in Gary's book, he said this was a little disjointed and he wished he could have focused on it a bit better, but I don't see nothing wrong with this album, actually. I'd got used to Rob. I mean, Rob was the vocalist when I sort of jumped on board with Exodus, and Steve Souza was in the back. You know, so my first album was Bonded by Blood, then I got Shovelhead Kill Machine, and then got all the albums in between. I'd kind of accepted that Steve Souza was in the past. So when Steve came back into the band, I kind of had mixed feelings. I was kind of glad and kind of curious that he was back. And with what the band had done since, I was like, well, what's he going to do with the new material? And but I was kind of sad. I was sad that Rob was gone, because I did like Rob. And I think Rob should have been hired for Kerry King. I banged my head against the wall ever since, all through Slayer's farewell tour, when Kerry King was saying he was going to do a solo band, he was just going to carry on. I said there and then, he should have got Rob Dukes in his solo band, because he's got Mark from Death Angel now, and that's already causing tensions with Dark Angel. Death Angel. Death Angel are being put on the shelf at the moment, and yeah, I think Mark, because Kerry King, he's ruthless. He's just going to go, yeah, I'm booking a gig, I'm booking tours. It's down to you to fit it in, and yeah, I think Mark's going to have to make a decision at some point. And he should have got Rob Dukes, because he used to sing Rob Dukes' praises. Anyway, so Rob Dukes is out at this point. Steve is back. And yeah, it's a good album though. Collateral Damage, Blood In, Blood Out is classic Exodus. I mean, that could have fitted on Bonded by Blood. I really like Salt the Wounds. Steve screams his lungs out on that one. But Body Harvest is another great track. BDK, another great track. My Last Nerve, really, really good. I'm thinking there's another one on there that's quite dark and doomy, but I'm not sure if that's the next album or not. But yeah, no, awesome album. And Steve, you know, he fits back into the band and works it brilliantly. And Steve was a gentleman as well. Steve is a really class act, and I've had a hell of a lot. I did not respect him, but I had a hell of a lot more respect since he's been back in the band, because, excuse me, Rob obviously didn't take it well being sacked from the band, and he said something like, "Oh, fuck those douchebags," or something like that in a podcast. And Exodus did like a anniversary concert where they got like some ex-members together. I think they got the bass player from the first 4 albums, and Rick Hunnell come back, and you know, and Rob Dukes come out and did songs with them, and it was, Rob's, you know, they've obviously patched things up. And I remember Steve Souza saying, like, you know, in an interview, yeah, like, I made them call him, like I got them talking, and I said, like, if we're gonna do this, you've got to invite Rob. And whatever's I don't care what he said, he was a member of the band. And yeah, and I'll never forget it. He went, "Because life's too short for that shit." And he's absolutely right. God bless him. And he does his YouTube channel thing now. He does like movie reviews, album reviews, interviews. It's a great show. He's got the same sort of setup as I've got. He's got a little hut in the back of his garden full of albums and horror posters and whatnot. And he got Rob on there, and they did like a 3-hour long podcast, and it was great. It was like, you know, he patched that up, and you know, just a real class act, you know. But yeah, Blood In, Blood Out, awesome album. And then Slayer came to an end, apparently, and Gary was able to come back to the band full time, because during their tour for this, Gary wasn't touring with them, and they got the other guitarist from Heathen to take over. And I remember just sitting there going like, this is crazy. This is like Steve Harris, you know, doing an Iron Maiden album and then going touring with Judas Priest, you know. I get it. I mean, because a certain guy from a certain British thrash metal band gave me shit for bringing this up on Facebook. He's like, oh, that's right. He's meant to come play in a club for you, even though he's now able to afford a house. And no. I was like, that wasn't what I was getting at. I'm saying, how can this mean? What can this mean long term for Exodus when their key member isn't touring with them? That's a valid question to ask, you know. But anyway, so Slayer came to an end anyway, and Gary comes back into Exodus full time, and they put out the album Persona Non Grata. Now, for me, this is just part 1, part 2, really. I mean, it's just as good an album as Blood In, Blood Out. I think, yeah, the beatings will continue until morale improves. Brilliant song. Persona Non Grata's really good. Clickbait is quite dark, if I remember correctly. Or is that Costa del Pantano? It might be Costa del Pantano, I'm thinking of. It's quite dark and moody. Not sure now. Elitist is another good song. Prescribing Horror. It's pretty much everything you want, really, at this point. It's how long is this album, actually? This one's another long one. Yeah, well, it's about an hour long. But yeah, it's the band fully focused on full form. I mean, bloody hell, 2014, and this is 2021. So again, it was another big gap, really. Mind you, we had the lockdowns. Mind you, this was just before. This must have been during the lockdown, actually. In fact, I saw these. There was Testament, Exodus, and Death Angel at the Forum in London, and yeah, I think it was like lockdown was announced. Like, I think this was like on the Tuesday, and lockdown was on the Friday, something like that. It was literally a week, and then the world shut down. And that was 2020, wasn't it? This was out November. I honestly can't remember. It's all blurred. It's all become a big nightmarish blur now. But yeah, another scorching album, and another feather in the band's cap. Now, Steve is out with the band again, and Rob Dukes is now back in the band. I did do a reaction. I'm just going to hold that until the camera focuses. I did do a reaction at the time, reacting to the news, and I kind of had the same mixed feelings as I had when Steve came back into the band, because I had accepted Steve was in the band. So I was kind of sad to see Steve go, but in this kind of way I was kind of happy to see Rob come back, because I did like Rob. And I think, I don't know, I've seen them with Steve now, and I never actually saw them with Rob. So now I get to see them with Rob. I now can say I've seen both. So there is that. But yeah, let's get into it. Well, shall we get into the Steve versus Rob? I mean, they're two very different vocalists, but they both fit Exodus so well in their own way. and they both put their distinctive touches. I mean, if you take these two albums and say these two albums, these two versus these two. I mean, yeah, it's the same band, but it's a world of difference, you know. It still feels like the same era of the band, but they both do different things. I mean, I think Steve is a bit more skilled and a bit more versatile with his vocals, and with Rob, you kind of saw him from Shovel-Headed Kill Machine to Exhibition B. You really see him develop as a vocalist. And I mean, the first album, Shovel-Headed Kill Machine, he's just barking into the mic, and it's great. And the vocalist he is here, you know, you really see how much he's developed. I will say, Steve, I'll give him his due as well. When he came back into the band, he was happy to sing Rob Duke's songs as well. Normally when the classic vocalist comes back into a band, that doesn't often happen. So again, hats off to Steve again for doing that. So yeah, I mean, I don't know what's going to happen. I guess they'll do 2 albums with Rob, and then he'll leave, and Steve will come back. But like I said at the time, Steve always lands on his feet. He'll find something to do. He's already started. He did that big podcast saying, "Oh, I don't want to tour anymore. I want to spend time with my grandkids. I want to settle down. I'm 60 now. I've done my time." Blah, 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 blah. What's he done? A week later, he's announcing Exodus, and he's playing Temple of the Damned in full. I think he's doing like New Mexico and places like that. Well, he ain't just going to do the 5 shows, is he? That's going to go on. So he's going to tour. But he talked about doing a new Tennant album as well, which would be really cool. But yeah, in terms of who's the best vocalist, I don't know. I honestly don't know. I like them both for different reasons. They both bring their own thing to the band. I don't know. I think Steve is better suited for what the band are doing now. I think maybe Steve was best for the albums he was on, but when it came to Blood In, Blood Out, Steve was the best one for that album. And now what they're doing now, maybe Steve's gone as far as he can go with the band again, and it's time for Rob to... who knows? But it's a real struggle. But in terms of... Now, forget the big 4, forget thrash metal, forget the San Francisco scene. Just talking about Exodus now. Bonded by Blood... Temper of the Damned. Bonded by Blood, Pleasures of the Flesh, and The Toxic Waltz are classic thrash metal albums that were, they were instrumental. They are part of the thrash metal canon in the development of thrash. I am not taking that away from anyone. Bonded by Blood is a classic. It's a classic debut album. But I'm talking about Exodus, and solely Exodus, whose key songwriter is Gary Holt and main drummer is Tom Hunting, with the thingy vocals between Steve or Rob. But the main thing, Gary Holt, Tom Hunting, Exodus. Don't care about Metallica or anyone else. I'm just talking about Exodus. The best music Exodus have recorded is now. The best era of Exodus has been from 2004 up until now, and I will stick by that. This is Gary Holt's best riffs, his best playing, his best songwriting. This is Tom Hunting's best drumming, and for this era, Rob Dukes is probably the better one, but Steve Souza is also on top form. And Paul Bailoff, I love him, I respect him, God bless him, but I don't think the band could have gone forward with him. Just like Iron Maiden couldn't have gone forward with Paul Di'Anno. And I love Paul Di'Anno. Some things are just what they are. And I do think Exodus are better in this run from 2000 onwards. From 2010 onwards. Better than anything the Big 4 have released. Even if you did the last 2 albums. Fuck it. Better than anything the Big 4 released. So, yeah, amazing riffs, awesome songs, big grand song structures. Exodus Raw. So, yeah, that's it, folks. And up next, we've got part 2 of Testament. I don't know if I'll do that straight away. I might leave that a little while, but I will do it soon. I might do another retrospective, then do Testament part 2. And that's it for now. I do want to carry on with Pantera Cast at some point, but me and Luke being off the same time, it just gets harder and harder. But we will do it. We will do it soon. Getting this done kind of clears that as well. I might have a guest coming on soon. Won't say too much just yet. Let's just wait and see if it happens. But apart from that, thanks for watching, everyone. I love you all. Let me know what you think in the comments. What do you think of new Exodus? Do you love this era of the band? Do you hate it? What did you agree with me on? What did you disagree with me on? What do you think of Let There Be Blood? What do you think of Rob Dukes? What do you think of Steve? Who's your favourite vocalist? Have you ever checked out Tennant? Let me know what you think of this album. There's loads to talk about. Let me know in the comments. And I'll see you all soon. I'm going to bed. See you later. Bye.